What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So I'm happy to see in the aftermath of UFC 319 that people are starting to reevaluate what they thought about Demetrious Johnson, and they're starting to give him some more credit, because UFC 319 was kind of an indictment, not just on Alexandre Pantoja, but kind of on the current crop of champions, because of course Kaya Sakura lost to old man Tim Elliott, and that's a very bad look, because Pantoja only has 3 title defenses, and Kai is one of them. And Tim Elliott is considered one of Demetrious Johnson's worst title defenses. He, like him and Bagutinov and guys like that, are who people point to and say, really? You know, this guy's the GOAT? This guy's one of the best fighters to ever live? Oh, I'm supposed to be impressed by this 11-fight series of title defenses? Like, so what? The crop of contenders he fought sucked. He fought guys like Tim Elliott. Like, that's what people were saying. And now we see a 38-year-old Tim Elliott finish Kaya Sakura in the second round. So I'm happy to see that different MMA YouTubers have kind of been reevaluating that. They've been walking back what they've been saying and recognizing that, yeah, maybe they had been overrating Pantoja and the current crop of flyweights, and underrating Demetrious and his crop of flyweights. Because MMA Guru is kind of the only guy who I think was more or less correct about it the whole time, because, and maybe he's biased because he works with Demetrious and he collabs with him. But I remember he had Demetrious top 5 of all time. After UFC 319, when he and Demetrious did their little podcast they do after all the pay-per-views, they kind of went through Demetrius's resume. They made the case for the quality of his wins. I did an older video weeks prior. You can go back and watch it. It's called something like Jack Slack and MMA Che need to start respecting Demetrious Johnson. It's called something like that, but you can go find it. Where I just laid out the resume. I laid out who his contenders were, what their collective win-loss records were, the diversity of their styles, because he fought D1 wrestlers, he fought Olympic champion wrestlers, he fought Wilson Hayes was a world champ in jiu-jitsu at brown belt. Bagutinov was a Sambo world champion. He fought different kinds of strikers, karate guys, southpaws. He fought a pretty impressive array of styles. And these guys also had success in other weight classes in a lot of cases. And it just holds up very well. They did well as they aged out and they had to fight the up-and-coming generation of flyweights. His crop of flyweights when he was the king was quite good. And flyweight is one of the good divisions. It's maybe not as good as bantamweight or lightweight, but it's one of the good divisions. It's not a shitty division like middleweight or light heavyweight. And so I'm glad to see people are backtracking a bit and kind of reevaluating things, because again, UFC 319 wasn't just an indictment on Pantoja, it was also an indictment on, Dricus du Plessis, because he not only lost, but lost in a lopsided, embarrassing fashion that really exposed how much his skill set was lacking. And, people going into that fight, a lot of them had Dricus on their top 20 GOAT lists. A lot of them thought, top 15 GOAT lists even in some cases. A lot of people thought he was already the middleweight GOAT. And I'm sure with this loss that everyone's going to backtrack that. I bet you a year from now when people put out updated GOAT lists, he's just going to be totally gone, I'd wager. And he should be gone. And I've argued in the past that, his title run had some fool's gold in it, because everyone from Whitaker to Strickland were past their prime. They're still great wins, but they are past their prime, and people have gotten on my case about that, but you can go back and watch my video. I'm not going to rehash it all here. But they were past their prime. And so anyways, I'm glad people are starting to give Demetrious some credit, but I think people still don't realize how fucking good he was, and they still don't realize how impressive his win streak was. And there's 2 main components that get overlooked that I'm going to address here. And those are, 1, Demetrious Johnson never beat any fucking old men. Okay? And the second is that Demetrious Johnson never had a size advantage over an opponent. Okay, so going in order, Demetrious, nearly everyone he fought in his title reign was in their prime. He fought 1 or 2 guys who were pre-prime. So Horiguchi, he caught a little early. Horiguchi was pretty young. Yeah, he'd had 16 fights or something, so he wasn't totally green, but it was relatively early in his career, and he went on to do better things. So he caught him a bit early, granted. But there's not a single guy in there who's old and washed, or even just past their prime. They're all in their primes or earlier. And that basically never happens, okay? You can look at the other GOATs, look at John Jones. He beat tons of old guys. Look at Alexander Volkanovski, like he beat an old Korean zombie. Look at Islam Makhachev, Moicano, old, Poirier, old, even Oliveira, I would argue was past his prime a little bit when he beat him. Still great wins, but these guys are past their primes. Look at Merab Dvalishvili. He beats Jose Aldo, he beats Henry Cejudo, and granted those weren't title fights, but they're part of his win streak that we're so infatuated with. And those guys were old. They were past their primes. They're still good wins. These aren't, just because you're no longer at your peak doesn't mean you're a bum necessarily, but these were better than beating like a current day Tony Ferguson or something like that. These were still ranked opponents and so on, but they weren't in their primes. And Mighty Mouse has no wins like that. In this 11-fight record-breaking series of title defenses, he has no old guys on his record. That's fucking insane. And again, moving on, like he never had a size advantage. He used to fight at bantamweight, and he had success there. Like he has some good wins. He beat Kid Yamamoto. He beat Miguel Torres. Like those are good wins. He fought Dominic Cruz for the title, and you really saw the size gap there, and you really saw how Cruz could just muscle him around in the wrestling. And that's why he had to move down to flyweight. But even after he moved down, he's a small flyweight. Demetrius Johnson is just not that fucking big. And again, it's so rare for a reigning champion to not have a size advantage over any of the fucking people he fights. Like, look at GSP versus BJ Penn. Look at John Jones just fighting this slew of, like, guys who either were middleweights, like Vitor and Chael, guys who would go on to be middleweights, like Rashad and Machida, or guys who just should have been middleweights, like Shogun. Like, he beat a ton of people like that. Even Daniel Cormier is like, obviously, you can't argue with the results of Daniel Cormier, but he was a small light heavyweight, a small heavyweight, and Jones had a big size advantage over him. Even Anderson Silva, like look at the Damian Maia went on to spend like the second half of his career at welterweight. And granted, a lot of people don't know this, but Anderson actually fought at welterweight earlier in his career. He fought Hayato Sakurai at welterweight. So maybe he's not actually much bigger than Damian, but I'd wager, it's been a while since I've seen that fight, and I don't have a lot of desire to rewatch it because it fucking sucked. But I'd wager if I went back and watched Anderson and Damian, I'd see that Anderson is just the bigger man. And like Fedor Emelianenko, he beat Matt Lindland, a fucking middleweight. You know what I mean? Like, this is just so common. Like, Islam Makhachev, like his whole title run is is featherweights. Even leading into it, like Dan Hooker was a former featherweight. Charles Oliveira, former featherweight. Volkanovski twice, former featherweight. Poirier, former featherweight. Renato Moicano, former featherweight. Like, there's very few actual lightweights that he beat. Khabib, same thing. Dustin Poirier, former featherweight. Conor McGregor, former featherweight. Justin Gaethje, very small lightweight, probably could make featherweight. Edson Barboza, like, went on to fight at featherweight. And Khabib is a big lightweight. Just like Islam, they could just never make featherweight. They're actual lightweights. And this doesn't make these wins meaningless, but it shows how impressive it is that Mighty Mouse never did that. Every person he beat was his size or bigger. Every single one of them. He was never a size bully. Not once. In this record-breaking series of title defenses. Okay? Like, do you realize how fucking crazy that is? Do you? And so, when you pair that with everything else, when you pair that with when you combine that with the diversity of opponents he beat, the ways he beat them, the fact that his opponents, it was a good crop at lightweight. They did go on to have success against the subsequent generations and against people in the higher weight class. Like, when you look at the fact that he was beating them at range, that he was beating them in the clinch, that he was able to take them down, ground and pound them, submit them. He's got one-punch KOs. He's got finishes by strikes to the body. He's got a variety of submission finishes. Again, he submitted Wilson Hayes, a world champ at brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, the fact that Mighty Mouse was up against that kind of competition, that diversity of competition, and the fact that he never had the size advantage, he never fought an old guy, and the fact that he was still able to dominate them the way he could, in the phases that he could, and he was able to get the variety of finishes that he did, this is unique. This is uniquely great. Okay? He's one of the best fighters of all time. I don't have him in the number one spot. If you go back and watch my top 20 GOAT list, I don't have him at number one. but he should be really fucking high. And he actually has an argument to be number one. I wouldn't give it to him, but if someone did, I wouldn't roll my eyes. Whereas I would roll my fucking eyes if he's not in your top 10 or he's not in your top 15, which you should have actually seen. And if you don't have him, but you have Pantoja, that's just fucking batshit crazy.